You ever wonder if you could boil down an entire library of scripture into just a couple of main ideas? Well, today we're going to look at a foundational teaching that pretty much does exactly that. And what's cool is we'll be doing it bilingually so we can see how these big ideas hold up across different languages and cultures.
Okay, so this question right here, this is where it all begins. And the answer we get from our source material, it's not some crazy, complicated list of rules. It's actually a super simple, kind of elegant framework.
So the answer we're given is really direct. You can almost picture it as two giant pillars. But here's the thing. They're not just two separate ideas standing apart. Nope. They're actually holding up one single, complete structure for faith and for life.
And there you have it, belief and duty. It's that simple. What's so powerful about this is that it covers both our inner world, what we truly believe, and our outer world, what we actually do. It really gives you the full picture. All right, let's break down that first pillar. Belief. Now, when we talk about belief here, we're not just talking about some vague feeling. The sources are really specific. It's about the foundational truths, the non-negotiables about God's character, His authority, and His very nature. This is really the what and the why behind everything. And then, flowing right out of that belief, we get our second pillar, duty. And this is defined as, all the responsibilities and actions that God requires from us because of who He is. It's basically belief in action. So let's really dig into this first pillar, belief. It's so much more than just memorizing a list of facts, right? It's the absolute foundation for an entire way of looking at the world. So how does it actually work? Well, here's how belief builds that foundation. First, it establishes God as the ultimate authority, the creator. That's the starting point. And that gives us the why behind the what, the reason for our duties. And once you have that why, obedience isn't just about blindly following rules anymore. It becomes a totally logical response.
Here's another way to put it, which I think is pretty powerful. Belief is the thing that turns duty from just a chore, something you have to do, into a meaningful act of worship. It's that core understanding, that why, that gives everything you do real meaning and depth.
Okay, and that leads us perfectly into our second pillar, duty. This is where the rubber meets the road, It's the hands-on, practical expression of what we believe. It's where faith stops being just an idea and becomes something you can actually see and touch. Now, the wording on this is absolutely crucial. The source material is very careful to call this a divine requirement, not a subject of human choice. That's a huge distinction, right? It's not about what you feel like doing, it's presented as an objective command.
And this idea of duty isn't some vague, abstract concept. No, it shows up in really concrete ways. We're talking about things like adhering to God's law, worshiping Him in the right way, and just generally living wisely according to His rules. It's like a roadmap for how to live.
So this really brings us to a key question, something to chew on. In this whole framework, what really is the difference between a divine requirement and the human choice? Thinking about that is pretty central to understanding the whole idea. All right, so we've looked at them separately, but why does it matter so much that we have both pillars? Well, it's because they absolutely have to be connected. They were designed to stand together, and you're about to see why.
And our source material couldn't be clearer about this. If you try to separate what you believe from what you do, it just doesn't work. It creates this huge critical imbalance. They absolutely cannot stand on their own.
And this imbalance can go one of two ways, both of them pretty dangerous. If you have duty but no real belief behind it, that just leads to empty, hollow rules, legalism. But on the flip side, if you have all this belief but no duty, no action, then it's just an abstract theory floating around in your head with no impact on the real world.
Actually, the sources have a specific term for this idea of just following rules without belief. They call it self-declared autonomy. And what that means is basically declaring your independence from God's will. It's setting yourself up as your own authority, which in this framework is classified as an act of rebellion.
Okay, so let's pull all of this together and wrap up with the main takeaways from this whole framework. So the big picture is this. Scripture's main teachings are built on these two pillars, belief and duty. Think of it like this. Belief is your foundation, the why, and duty is the actual structure you build on top of that foundation, the what. For a true, balanced faith, you absolutely need both of them, standing together, working in perfect harmony. So, we'll leave you with this final thought to take with you.
how does this relationship, this dance between belief and action, actually show up in your own life or in your studies? It's a really fundamental question, and it's definitely something we're thinking about.